Hi, welcome to Android class. In the previous session, we have covered the basic concepts of activity intercommunication. We have understood how you can go from one activity to next activity and pass data as well. We also discussed how you can collect data in next activity and send it back to first activity. Now we will develop two activity classes and see how this intercommunication happens. But in this session, first we will develop the class called expense activity, and after that we will focus on next session on expense item activity. So here we will go to Eclipse and start doing our code. As we know that for every activity we need a layout file called XML layout. For this expense activity class, we will use expense.xml layout XML file. This XML file I have already created it. It is just a layout XML file. You can create anything, something similar. Here you have to just create a edit a text view and edit text box and these two buttons. This will display the total expense done by the user, and this will, when you click, it will take you to how a new screen which will allow you to add new expenses. And when you are done, it will come here, and when you again click done, it takes you to the main screen. And if you remember, our main screen looks something like this. Okay, so let us go back to the expense.xml. Here we will start with creating a new class. Let's call it new class, and you can just select this one and you can say new class. Then it will take few things automatically, or you can say com.isaac.ta. Expense activity. Here we will mention activity class. Select do the browse and select this one. Here we have the basic activity class. Now what we are going to do is that, because there are few buttons and we need to provide the ClickListener listener classes, so we will call it implements OnClick listener. So this is the class which is provided by Android. It says that add unimplemented methods, so that is what OnClick, because of this interface it comes. Now let us start writing few codes for this expense activity class. To store the total expense, we will declare a variable called total expense. Let us put some value in the beginning. We will also add a request ID, which I will explain you very soon that what is the use of it, but let me just declare it and just put some value 0 again. We have two buttons in the layout and we'll call them add expense underscore bt and done underscore bt. Okay, and then we have a edit text where we display the total expense. So we'll declare some variable for that as well. You have to import these two. If it is showing error, you have to just say import edit text and you are done. Now here what we have to do is that we have to first implement the onCreate method. We know that this is the most important method for any activity. So first we'll do set content view r dot layout dot. What is the layout which we are using? The layout we are using is expense, because this is expense.xml, right? So that is what. Then let us create all these buttons. There are two buttons, or I can just copy it here and then do the casting of the button. Find view by id r.id dot. What is the name of the button which we are using? It is expense add button. So we'll use this one, and let us just copy this much here, and here the button name is, we have the ID of the button is expense done. So this is the button ID, will use it. Find view, that is capital B here. So that is what was the problem. So now we have got a reference to these two buttons in this class, and then we'll also get a reference to edit text. So the edit text variable is underscore et, total and total expense underscore et. Okay, and here let us copy a little bit so that it will be of some help, and then we will change. ID is different for edit text. What is the ID for expense text? It is expense total et here, and here it is not a button, it is edit text. So put it edit text, and then you are pretty much done. Okay, so just here, once you have declared the variable, create a listener for each of those buttons. So what we'll do is that we'll just put here, and then there is a method called set on ClickListener, correct? And inside this you just pass this, that is the context, because this object itself is also working as a listener object, because you have implemented on ClickListener interface. So what you are doing is that this object itself works as a listener for this button. So set on ClickListener this. Same we will do for this one, because both is done underscore bt. That pretty much completes this one. Now once you are done with this one, the last thing what you have to do is that set the total expense underscore et dot set text, and in this what you will set the text. So this is the edit text, and you are taking a variable called total expense, which is 0 in the beginning. So this is what you have to set it. But to set it, this is an integer, and this is, you have setting a character sequence. So this will not work this way. What you have to do is you have to start here and do like this, integer dot to string, and inside this you can pass your integer total expense. Okay, so your onCreate method is pretty much done. So what is left to do? The only thing left to do is implement the OnClick, this variable OnClick method. Now here what I will do is that I will just write a handler what to do. First I will do is that declare a variable view id equals to v dot, here let us give this as a v dot get id. If you see, there is a method called get id, and this will tell you that which button was clicked. What was the idea of getting this line? This gives you the ID of the button which was clicked, and depending on that you can take the action. Let us assume that if that view ID is equals to r.id.expense, there are two buttons. So one ID is expense add button and other one is expense done button. So let us put the logic first, and if let me just copy this part. Okay, so if view ID is r.id.expense add button, so if the button add button is clicked, then do this, else if it is done button, expense done button. Okay, so if it is done button, then we don't do anything, we just call finish, which will close this activity and take it back. View ID is capital, so that's why it was not. But if it is add button, then what do we do? What we are going to do is that in case somebody clicks add button, then we are going to launch a new screen called expense item activity. So what we are going to do is that my intent equals to new intent get base context import intent, so that's why intent was not coming, get base context, and then you have to pass the name of the class. What was the name of the class we are planning to do? It will launch expense item activity dot class. That class we have not yet written and developed, so that's why it will give you the error, but don't worry, that I will fix it very soon. And once that class is ready, we will call a special method called start activity for result. And here we will pass my intent and request ID. Okay. Now since this one expense item activity class is not right now present, so what we will do is that just to compile the code, we will comment out this one. Once this class is ready, we will uncomment this and we will go with this. So that's pretty much the first part is required, that when you go from here to the next activity. So let us leave it here and go and try to see if this class works or not. So what we will do is that this class has the basic structure, but few things are required. Second is that you have to declare that activity in Android manifest.xml file. So let us declare this. just give the name of the new activity which you have just created, expense activity, and that should be fine. Okay, and I have created expense activity.java, I have created expense.xml, expense activity.java, and traveler assistant activity manifest. I have added this one. What else is required? There is one more thing required, and that is that in the main assistant activity.java, under the menu click, there need to be something done. So go back to your main activity class called traveler assistant activity. Okay, and here under OnClick, on create options menu, there is a option called expense. So for this 11, you have to put here a code so that it will launch the activity. For that, what you have to do is that create a intent, my intent equals to new intent, get base context, and then put the name of that class, expense activity dot class, and then start activity and pass this intent. Okay, once you are done with this, every time you will click that menu, it will launch that. So now, since we are done with this, why don't we just test it, how it looks like. And while you are launching, it is always a good idea to keep an eye on the console tab. This is here. If you are not able to see it, you can bring it from here. So open, so view, and here you will find console. Okay. So let us see that, how does it look like. So here it is. So what we will do is that here is our traveler assistant screen. We'll click expense, and the moment we click expense, this screen comes, and this is what we wanted. If you click right now this one, nothing happens because we have not created the next screen which it will show. But if I click done, it should close this. So when I click done, it goes. So I have done this. If you see this button, under the done button I have said finish, so it closes. So we are pretty much done with the first iteration of expense activity class, and in the next iteration we will develop expense item activity class. Okay.